is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight,
Bimbo Oloede.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Nigeria wins a non-permanent seat in the United Nations, signaling a return after 2 years. Mudslide hits Obudu area in Cross River State. No end in sight to the Academic Staff Union of Universities strike. Our big story tonight examines its impact on warring parties. And President Barack Obama signs bill to reopen U.S. government and raise debt ceiling, ending a 16-day shutdown. And on business news tonight, revenue shortfall hits Lagos others as federal government delays payment of monthly allocation.
And sports news, British tennis star Andy Murray is honoured with an OBE, that's the Order of British Empire, at the Buckingham Palace.
Nigeria has been elected unopposed into a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Also elected unopposed are Saudi Arabia, Chad, Chile and Lithuania. However, the Gambia recently pulled out of the race. Meanwhile, President Goodluck Jonathan has welcomed Nigeria's election today to a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. In a press statement, the President expressed appreciation to all member countries of the United Nations who voted for Nigeria's election to the Security Council. The President described it as a historic victory and gave the assurance that Nigeria, under his leadership, will continue to make significant contributions towards the achievement and sustenance of global peace and security. This is the fourth time since it became independent in 1960 that Nigeria is being elected to the UN Security Council. It is also the second time the country would be elected into the UN Non-Permanent Security Council. The first was in 2010 to 2011, and now from 2014 to 2015 under the Jonathan presidency. This appointment did not come easy, but membership of the UN Security Council has been Nigeria's goal. In this next report, our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, takes us through the journey to this important position in the international community.
It had been quite a race up to this point. Having received the blessing of the African Union as well as ECOWAS, Nigeria ran for West Africa's slot on the Security Council unopposed. Gambia, which had been a sole challenger, recently stood down.
President of the Republic of the Gambia.
At the last UN General Assembly, President Goodluck Jonathan had made a strong case for Nigeria, citing her valuable contribution towards peacekeeping on the continent and elsewhere.
Our support for the United Nations Security Council in its primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security has been total and unwavering. We have, in previous membership of the Council, demonstrated both the political will and capacity to engage in key Council responsibilities.
He emphasized the need for change in the world body, in that Africa should be given a permanent seat in the Security Council, with Nigeria taking up the position.
We believe strongly that the call for democratization worldwide should not be for states only, but also for international organizations such as the United Nations. That is why we call for the democratization of the Security Council. This is desirable for the enthronement of justice, equity, and fairness, and also for the promotion of a sense of inclusiveness and balance in our world.
Other analysts have played Nigeria's strengths in this cause, supporting the President's views.
If the people of the world leaders, really want peace, they must give Nigeria a permanent seat. I'm not saying giving Africa. There's a difference. Because what they call African seats, they have the intention of saying they are rotating. There shouldn't be anything like rotating.
Looking back, in 2009, Nigeria polled the same 186 votes to be elected to a non-permanent seat between January 1st, 2010 and December 31st, 2011. During the time, Nigeria's permanent representative to the UN, Professor Joy Ogu, was made to serve as a rotational president of the Security Council. Others elected to serve for the next 2 years in the Security Council include Saudi Arabia, Chad, Chile, and Lithuania. They replace Azerbaijan, Guatemala, Morocco, Pakistan, and Togo on the 15-member Security Council on January 1st, 2014. Now, all 5 countries were elected unopposed, but they still needed approval from 2/3 of the General Assembly to secure their seats. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
The federal government wants an end to the proliferation of data capture by agencies in the country. It says the action does not make any economic sense. Flagging off the launch of the National Identity Program at the Presidential Villa, President Goodluck Jonathan ordered the National Identity Management Commission to ensure that all persons eligible for registration are enrolled by December 31st, 2014. The president, who was registered by officials of the commission, also directed that all government agencies requiring identity verification must switch to the National Identification Management Commission infrastructure.
President Goodluck Jonathan chose the council chambers to get his own data captured with the very high-tech IT equipment with which the staff of the commission had on display for the enrollment exercise. And he took time to study the data collected as well as inspected the equipment in use. The president decried the pitfalls in the past, including the multiple registration going on in government agencies, and called for harmonization before the end of next year.
By the same data, all government agencies requiring identity verification and authentication services or involved in data capture activities must align the activities with a view to switching over to the National Identity Management Commission infrastructure.
The president called for private sector participation in the program and instructed the secretary to the government and the finance minister to ensure accomplishment in a record time, stressing on the advantages to government and the Nigerian people.
If we are to achieve a multiple prolonged approach to the fight against corruption, and finally, if we are to introduce social security or welfare payments, then we must first and foremost establish and verify appropriately the identities of individuals.
From a PowerPoint, the Director General explained the technicalities involved and plans to enroll eligible Nigerians without acrimony.
In the past, there was no opportunity for harmonization and integration of identity databases across agencies, and so what we had were silos databases across agencies. No one is talking to the other. There's no unified standards. There are no harmonized processes and procedures. That has now been taken care of.
What has happened here is an indication that the journey to enroll over 100 million Nigerians has begun in earnest. Now you are expected to enroll at the nearest center in your locality. Get enrolled once and be identified for life. Chukuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
A renowned economist and member of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Professor Anya O. Anya, has been named as a replacement for elder statesman Professor Ben Nwabweze and the Advisory Committee on National Dialogue. This is contained in a press statement from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Citing age and health reasons, Professor Nwabweze had earlier announced his inability to participate in the committee's work. In a signed press statement, Professor Nwabweze explains that he has been fighting prostate cancer for a while, and at the age of 83, he thinks somebody younger than him ought to have been nominated within the fold of the Patriots. Also contained in the statement from the Office of the SGF is the resignation of the chairman of the National Population Commission, Mr. Festus Odumegu. Although no reason was given for Mr. Odumegu's resignation, He had been embroiled in a controversy arising from his questioning the figure of the last national census, for which he was allegedly queried by the presidency. The statement also named the commissioner representing Abia State, Dr. Sam Highway, as the acting chairman of the commission. The Civil Liberties Organization has raised concerns over unguarded utterances by politicians as the 2015 general elections draw close. The executive director of the pressure group, Ibuchukwu Ezike, warned of the dire consequences if the trend isn't checked.
Former governor, we have called this press briefing to alert the media and the entire Nigerian public on the obvious threats ambushing the 2015 general elections in our country and the implications these threats will have for human rights if left unchecked. As we all know, certain politicians have started making comments or statements that would cause both intra- and inter-party conflicts, which will unarguably threaten democracy, create chaos, and undermine human rights and civil liberties. For instance, the ruling People's Democratic Party and the major opposition or Progressive Congress have been making comments that can ignite crisis and make the 2015 politics dangerous and unsafe for popular participation. This will create opportunity for the manipulation of the electoral process and or violation of human rights. We urge the media, INEC, the police, civil society groups, and all stakeholders to begin early in the day to monitor and condemn any uncomplimentary comments or acts that may likely threaten the peace of the society. Lastly, the agency started with the responsibilities to try electoral offenders and their sponsors should begin to invoke the provisions of the law in order to bring the perpetrators of electoral violence in Nigeria to book. This, we feel, will serve as deterrent to those who may intend to indulge in such notorious actions and caution their actions.
The mudslide that swept through the famous Obudu mountain resort may not be a threat after all. This is according to the Cross River State government. The government confirms that different rescue teams comprising the Nigerian Air Force, NEMA and SEMA have evacuated persons cut off by the mudslide at the mountaintop and also within the community. Meanwhile, the Air Force headquarters in Calabar, the state capital, has said the force's helicopters have also been deployed to evacuate people. In part two, after the break, all Progressive Party candidates, Chris Ngige, seeks endorsement of traditional rulers on his governorship ambition. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.